Hey everyone, I hope you are doing well. Very happy to see you for our live today. And today's live it will be very interesting because, as you know, I'm sure you're aware that we have the pleasure to have the DappRadar team today to talk about the blockchain game report. And actually, the report was released maybe a few minutes ago. It was very fresh, so we'll be the first to actually deep dive into all the results, all the data, and try to understand what kind of thing we are seeing for January in terms of blockchain gaming. So, Sarah, hope you're doing well. Pedro as well. Pleasure to have you again in the show. We're gonna kickstart the show very quickly with the first thing that you actually highlight for every report, which is the activity in terms of unique active wallets. So, Pedro, could you actually talk about that? What happened in January in terms of activity on chain?
Hello, Flavien. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us again. Always a pleasure to chat and talk about such an interesting topic like blockchain games. And sure, we started the year with very positive indicators. So, following the industry recovery, the DApp industry recovery, games continue to perform quite strongly. As you can see, basically the on-chain gaming activities consolidated
Mm.
around 1 million daily unique active wallets since Q3, basically, of last year, which tells you how resilient and how consolidated are these top games, right? And following the recovery also seen in cryptocurrencies, which I'm pretty sure we will touch upon that later, we will see also positive respondents from the top games and their tokens. But overall, a very bullish start of the year for the gaming landscape and metaverse projects.
Yeah, you said so. You mentioned the daily unique active wallet, which is for January 858,000 daily unique active wallets, making up 48 of January DApp activity for gaming, especially. It's still when we compare that to the number of daily unique active wallets for 2022 on average, which was 1.13 million. It's still under the average of what we had in 2022. How do you analyze that for this first month of activity?
Yes, to be very fair, we are comparing to a period where we were just coming out of the metaverse hype cycle,
Hmm.
where there was a lot of enthusiasm around the industry and the space. Then, of course, we had the two big black swan events, first with the collapse of Terra and then the situation with FTX. So I would like to highlight that despite all these bearish news and people calling out that the app industry is dead, no, we're still here and we're still strong. So, despite all the cataclysm around the financial ecosystems, blockchain games are, well, you said 50% of on-chain activity tracked by
Yeah.
DappRadar is coming by games. So, it's still the backbone of the DApp industry, I would say, and very, very positive to see those on-chain metrics getting up.
Mm. Yeah, and obviously, as you said, it's going to be interesting to see what will happen in February in terms of the activity on chain for gaming as well. And what we also look at is the most important, let's say, gaming protocol. So, could you talk about this? We're going to have a dashboard to actually show that. But what's happening in terms of how dominant? What are the biggest gaming protocols that we're seeing on your side?
So the leader is still Wax in terms of on-chain activity and
Yeah.
mostly driven because of Alien Worlds, and I'm pretty sure your audience is quite familiar
Mm.
with Alien Worlds. Still the most on-chain activity, the game that with most on-chain activity. Let's remember that Alien Worlds is also building towards a DAO, so we're also accounting for their governance voting, their missions, which is basically playing,
Yeah.
but also NFT trading and so on. So we take into consideration all of these on-chain activities. So this doesn't mean that people is all of them are playing Alien Worlds, but they are interacting with the ecosystem in different ways. But still, they are recorded as gaming active wallets because they relate to a game, and it's the reason why what remains at the head. And then we see Polygon, well, of course, Splinterlands with Hive keep increasing. For me, it's impressive how Splinterlands keep resisting. We saw last summer when they revamped their whole token and model and gaming
Yeah,
economy, they lost half of their player base, which it was clear they were there just to farm rewards.
a lot of people were
And
scared about this decision back then. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, of course, because you have previous examples of gaming models that became unsustainable, right?
Mhm.
And why? Because they fail to capture audience, and this is actually the opposite that we are seeing with Hive and Splinterlands. 17% increase on daily active wallets from previous months. So it's really, really positive and surprising to still see Hive on second place.
Mm.
And then third is one of the biggest gaming stories of lately, Polygon. And actually, we issued a report that it's more focused on that and blockchain adoption.
Yeah.
And we saw how the focus of Polygon has completely shifted from being a heavy DeFi blockchain towards a gaming blockchain. They are hosting some of the most played games right now, and we will see that later. But yeah, it's quite nice to see Polygon up there right now. It's completely established as a gaming network.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if
Sarah,
I,
yeah,
I
please.
yeah, and like I just want to add something, and I think this is very interesting. Like Pedro was saying, we did wrote up DApp adoption, where we try to figure out exactly how much a DApp is dominant on a certain blockchain. And for January 2023, this could come like as a surprise for me was like on Wax, Allen Words has 75% of the dominance and activity on the unique active wallets. When we look at Hive, Splinterlands as well, 75%, but Polygon, for the first time, we have 59% of January's on-chain activity on Polygon is by Planet X. And I
Mm.
think this is, it kind of reassures and confirms what Pedro has been saying. Polygon has completely, it seems like Polygon is becoming a lead in gaming, and yeah, incredible, interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting that like they're putting a lot of effort to partner with not only new games, new blockchain game companies, but actually big companies like I think you're talking about that as well in the report about the
Yeah,
game was coming with Square Enix, right? With on
yeah,
Polygon.
yeah.
What's the name of the game again? Announced by Square Enix.
Yeah, so the game is Symbiogenesis. It's a very weird name. So actually, it's an NFT game that was anticipated from this Japanese game
Yeah.
publisher, which is, Square Enix. And I think this is very nice. First of all, it will be like a story-driven collectible game, which gonna hold like a 10,000 NFT collections. And besides being a blockchain gaming, they're gonna have also NFTs. I think this is where most of the Web2 gaming studios are deciding. I mean, like
Mm.
they are okay with blockchain technology, but they are not okay with NFTs. And for the first time, we are seeing, this two kind of combine. The game was announced in 2020, like I think in the beginning of 2022, and right now in January they say like, okay, we confirm it, this will be here, and this probably we're gonna see very very soon a lot of updates.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
going to be exciting to see what will happen with those games backed up with giant like Square Enix. And one question I wanted to ask you both is obviously we are seeing uh, like uptrend with Polygon and Hive, but also a downtrend, with BNB chain. So I was just looking at the chart. I was looking what's happening with BNB. I don't know if you have some answers to give us.
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, the case of BNB is hard to explain, but what we see is I could call it the BNB syndrome, which if we remember and go back to the summer of 2021, we were hearing a lot about a game called CryptoBlades. And CryptoBlades started to skyrocket. The price of their token also went to the sky. And but there was a time when they failed to, and going back to the point of unsustainable gaming economies, they fail to capture a new audience. And when basically the established players were already with their backs filled of the rewards, they started to sell the token. The sell pressure sends the token down, and the rewards were not enough to capture and captivate enough players to be consistently playing. So then CryptoBlades abandoned BNB and went to other chain. That's a different story, but that's a pattern that we have seen repeated in several BNB chains. So you see a pump and then you see a dump. For example, in the last 30 days, ERA 7 has decreased 40% in terms of UAW, falling from 80, 75 K to 42K in the whole month. We also see X World Games and Tiny World suffering a lot. And then on the other way around, you will also see a lot of games starting to increase in Binance. Now it's a case of PlaySap games and Meta Apes. By the way, all of these you can go into DappRadar rankings and select BNB and games, and you will see all the Binance games that are constantly active. But yeah, that's unfortunately some trend that we have seen in BNB, and also we have detected a couple of game dApps that were probably heavily driven by bot activity. So how did we came to that conclusion? Because you know that in Block Explorer you can start defining logic and rules. So we saw that one wallet was transacting exactly $1 all the time. So the trading volume was exactly matching the number of unique active wallets, which is such much a coincidence. And then two wallets interacting with the same wallets all the time. So we flagged those games. We stopped tracking them because we don't want to incentivize that type of behavior in the gaming landscape. So we delisted those game dApps without giving any names. But yeah, that's the case why we see such a visible reduction in Binance on-chain activity.
That's perfect. Thank you very much for this transparency, Pedro. I think it's helped us to understand more the number that you're putting on DappRadar as well, and to educate us about what we need to understand when we're facing these charts. So it's very beneficial to have your feedback on that. And switching with the next topic, which is game tokens. And I'm going to ask you that question to you, Sara. So we definitely seeing a spike in market interest for crypto, like Bitcoin breaks 25K once again. It seems we're in a better position than last year with the bullish trend for the long term, at least. And we are seeing a surge for some of the gaming tokens from the past few weeks as well. And putting aside the situation of the market, could you explain what's happening? Which game token are increasing their market cap and why?
Yeah, sure. So, like as you said, I think January 2022 came out strong with a very bullish sentiment coming from investors or to like major investors and really retail people. The inflation in the United States was a little bit down. Everyone was optimistic. Everyone had, like money to spend because, Christmas was over. So I think this is why we are seeing right now such a, bullish trend. Was surprisingly, I didn't expect to see the blockchain gaming token like rise a lot. And when we're looking at the projects, it's the top performer was Gala. They had an increase of 280. Exactly 280%, and that was crazy. And why Gala? I think Gala overall it's such a very nice ecosystem and it's very well built. They are in blockchain gaming, they are in music, and actually for the first time they are a user, like an artist from Gala has been nominated for a Grammy, which I think this is as well the adoption, right? Web3 gaming meets Grammys, which is crazy. And then we saw, like other project, we saw Apecoin. So I think this is another, it's just 51%, but I think this was very interesting, especially that we are looking at the data at the end of January 2023, and Sewer Pass, with the whole hype that has created, was launched like mid January. So just imagine that, like in 2 weeks, they managed to, to drive the price and the market cap by 51%. And I think this was seen on the not all only on the price of Apecoin, but also on the prices of all Yuga Labs ecosystem. For the NFT trading volume, we saw massive increases. We saw massive increases in the metaverse, especially other did. So I think, the launch of, even the announcement of the Sewer Pass and of the new game made by Yuga Labs made people like, and I'm gonna use the word crazy, but like very enthusiastic about blockchain gaming again. Furthermore, what's another thing incredible looking at the tokens is what Magic does. So actually, Magic, I know we're gonna cover this later, but Magic is the token that drives, let's say, Treasure DAO. And this is a little bit spoiler of what's coming next, but I think Treasure DAO is a very, very cool project, and we will find out why. And other projects like X Infinity, another big topic that we cover in the report. They are launching, they launched Homeland, they announced the season 2 of Regents. They did even a cool thing that they implemented in February, indeed, but still we did cover a little bit as some DeFi features when it comes to the land. So this is why we are seeing this increase. And yeah, I'm so excited, and I know this increases also happen in February, because this is a trend that we are seeing, right? Because if I call it 2 months, I think this is already a little bit of a trend. And I think we have to wait, end of March and see if this momentum will stay high. But as of right now, I'm very bullish on blockchain gaming.
It's really something to look at for the next month. I completely agree, and you mentioned that. And just for context, so to explain why ApeCoin got a lot of attention is because Yuga Labs launched their game Dookie Dash, and Yuga Labs actually issued a lot of pass NFTs to the holders of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, the Mutants, and the Kennel. And the pass was needed to play Dookie Dash, which is a similar game than Tuple One, I may say. And I had the chance to play the game. It was so fun. But actually, a lot of different things happened around the games. The ability to rent the NFT to be able to play the game itself, and it was very interesting that they innovated a lot through the release of the game and the release of the NFTs. And actually, depending on the score that you actually had an NFTs depending on your score, and you could put this in the market, which is mind-blowing. So you saying that this activity help the market to gain interest in NFTs in games is pretty interesting for that, and we will see what will happen for the next month. But looking at this, and I'm sure a lot of people are looking at this, which is the top 10. Pedro, what's happening? Pedro, Sara, you tell me what's happening with these top 10. What should we look at when we see the main games in terms of monthly activities on chain?
Yeah, by the way, this is a bit off, because Planet X is on Polygon and Play Mining is on Egg, and Nine Chronicles on Planetarium, right? So yeah, that's a strike from our design team that will be corrected in the report. But yeah, I mean, for me, the message here again is we can see the trends that we saw when we were talking about blockchain behavior at the blockchain level, right? We see the steep decreases in both Binance Game, Era 7, and X World games that I mentioned before. And you see the rising prices of Polygon games. And if we look at this same chart in September, you, instead of Planet X and Benji Bananas, you would be probably seeing at Arcade and Crazy Defense Heroes, or if not, Sunflowerland. But you keep listening and hearing about Polygon games. And actually, when you were talking about how they are entering, some brands are looking for Polygon to enter, and yes, Square Enix with Symbiogenesis is a perfect example. But Also the partnerships they have achieved with Starbucks to roll out their loyalty program with Disney. Oh my God, yeah, it makes you think that these guys are going seriously, right? But yeah, Planet X, interesting to see them there. What I really like about this game is that it's heavy on NFTs, right? More or less to give some context, there are like 9 planets with different rarity tiers, where you can go and farm resources to then recycle them and help the planet build the planet. To do this, you need some tools, like very similar to Alien Worlds. But what I like, and actually it's the same characteristic, they have very low entry NFTs. So you can actually buy an NFT for Planet X for less than $1 and start playing. So it's not free to play, but it's basically free to play with very low level of assets price, which bodes really, really well for the mass adoption narrative that we have been chasing. And Nine Chronicles also worth mentioning here. It's a really, really nice game. To be honest, I need to play it yet. I have just seen it mentioning here and there, but I haven't played it yet, so I'm looking forward to it. And finally, the recovery of Axie is so good to see.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we needed to we need Axie back there, and yeah, there are flaws and there are holes and gaps in their economics and so on. But yeah, it's also worth recognizing that these guys pioneered basically the play to earn model, and it's so nice to see them just adapt to the latest trends. They launch Lunasia, which is their virtual world land, as Sarah was mentioning. They launched recently Metaland, which allow you to basically fractionalize and stake your NFTs, earning passive income. And then when you think about the running ecosystem with the bridge and Katana, the DEX, you see how all the pieces fit together, and it's very nice recovery story from Axie. So nice to see them.
Yeah, we had the pleasure to attend PGC Pocket Gamer Connect, which is a big mobile gaming convention in London, in other city, but we were in London and we actually got the Quick Save Interactive team who actually developed one of the mini games for Axie Infinity, well lights, and actually giving the ability to the landowners to actually do a lot of different things and
Yep.
DeFi mechanisms as well. So it's pretty interesting to see that they're still leveraging a lot of activities that they're doing within the game. And we will see what will happen with the. I know that they want to make it easier for everyone to actually do some activities within the game.
Yes.
So we will see what will happen at the end. They're very interesting. And I know that another chart, very interesting and very looked at by a lot of people, a lot of your audience, is obviously what's happening in terms of investment, backing up the blockchain gaming ecosystem. Sarah, what kind of numbers do we have? Did we have in January in terms of blockchain game investment?
Yeah, so first of all, we had $156 million, right? And I think this is a very good amount of money starting, January in investments. We had a major investment with 100 million that comes from Courtside Venture, which is just a capital fund that they are focused on sports, collectibles, wellness, and gaming, and they are very, very good and huge, let's say, on blockchain gaming. So this is a very good amount of money. And looking where are the blockchain game investment going, we observe that besides the investment firm, people are looking into metaverse tech. And metaverse tech right now is companies that are oriented towards metaverse technology. I think this is going to be another trend that we already have seen last year, and it's still, going and continuing. Another we have game metaverse. The investments are towards projects that are already a metaverse and they are already, a game. And then, we have blockchain and, other. But this is where I think we can see the trends. Investment firms that they will starting right now. We are at that phase of the blockchain gaming industry where we will continue to build, and we are focusing on building investing, and then we have the shift towards metaverse and gaming, but metaverse. And I think this is another, let's say, stone of the blockchain game environment, something that we should definitely look out in the next month.
Awesome. So, yeah, please, Pedro.
And yeah, just to complement, so if we go to last year, the whole investments we launched also like a few weeks ago, the yearly report in cooperation with you guys, but I cannot remember the exact number, but
7.6 billion.
Yeah, 7.6 billions were invested in total in game related and metaverse projects, Web3 based. But 40x% of those 7.6 billion were invested into infrastructure to help building better user experience, or going to blockchains, building gaming solutions and ecosystems and so on. And now we're seeing a trend that this infrastructure is now shifting slightly towards very specific metaverse technology like AR, VR. And we saw what just happened with the AI trend. So we saw a lot of, we talked about gaming tokens, but what really exploded was the AI tokens, right? And how AI is going to play a role in gaming development is going to be also interesting. So now seeing metaverse tech makes a lot of sense, and how these specialized technology builders will keep adding value. And also, just to finish on the investments, the numbers would be even more impressive if we could have accounted on more detail on the latest Animoca Brands investments, because they invested undisclosed amounts on We Play Media, which is a Web3 based media company trying to help creators distribute their content better, and also in virtual arts, which again ties very close to metaverse oriented infrastructures. And also there is another undisclosed investment by another player called Hero Capital into a game called Soccerverse. So the numbers could even be bigger if we would have some more details on that. But yeah, metaverse tech trend starting heavy and hot in 2023.
Yeah, Animoca, Hero friends, give us a number. Even give us a number, just something that we can look at.
Exactly.
We'll be happy. Thanks a lot, guys. Pretty interesting to see that. As you mentioned, we will follow up with a lot of interesting stuff that just looked at in terms of the gaming token and games that actually seems to gain traction in terms of daily unique active wallets for February. And one of the things we will talk about right now is one of the key thing that you're actually highlighting in the report, which was the use case of Treasure DAO. And we are very happy to have Treasure DAO as a member of the BGA. And it's, as you said, Sarah, it's incredible the kind of activities and the different activities they're doing, and the infrastructure that they are representing. So I don't know if Carol can hear me right now, but I would love to have him on the show right now to actually speak a little bit more about what they do. So yeah, here you go. Hi, Carol. Pleasure to have you. How are you?
Hey, doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks again. Very happy to have you today, because the report was just released a few minutes before, and the DappRadar team was very impressed and interesting about the ecosystem that you're building yourself. You have a lot to share, so I guess the first question will be from me. Will be a very easy question. Could you actually introduce what is Treasure DAO and what you're doing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had the fortune of just joining early, so I've been just indulging in all the insights and super insightful trends and things like that. So kudos to you guys for putting together the report. Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, what we like to call ourselves is the decentralized Nintendo. And so kind of unpacking that a little bit is, really kind of thinking about Treasure as a kind of crypto native game publisher. It's also a kind of decentralized gaming ecosystem where, we have a core kind of token. It's called Magic, and players and games are connected, through kind of games that are connected with one another, kind of shared infrastructure that, we've been kind of building really to kind of emerge as this, kind of home for, game developers, but also players to kind of, be delighted in the magic of play. So there's a lot of, different kind of parts of this. Happy to share a bit more about our journey as well, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, I know, Pedro, you wanted to ask a question about the transition from being, you were considering as an NFT marketplace at first on Arbitrum, and you actually pivot a little bit. Pedro, I don't know if you actually kind of already asked the question, but if you want to add anything on your side, you tell me.
No, I think it's great to have you here as well, Karel. Nice to connect, and kudos to you as well, because you're doing a terrific job with Treasure DAO and the overall gaming ecosystem in Arbitrum. So it's interesting to see, and we're starting to see DAOs taking more presence in the gaming landscape. So yeah, as Flavien was asking, what's the transition of becoming from a DAO to a game publisher? Is it that community will have governance and a say in how the studio publish games, or what's the relation between a DAO and a full gaming ecosystem like you guys are building?
Yeah, absolutely. It harkens back to our early days and the start of Treasure and Magic. Not sure how much you know about the history, but I'll share it anyway and speed run through it. But we had started out as a derivative of Loot. So this was kind of Don Hoffman's concept, which really flipped the script on NFTs. So they were primitives, kind of 8 words on a card, fantasy style resources. And around that time, September 2021, there were hundreds, if not thousands of derivatives of this. And so we had our kind of own take on it, which was, kind of really believing that the metaverse was less of a single place and more of a kind of aggregate and collection of many metaverses, that were kind of connected together. But really the only way to bring together an ecosystem is to have something that, kind of underpins it. So, we created, our treasures, which were similar concepts, but they were commodities instead. There were things like gold and lumber, that people could use as the building blocks. And then also we launched Magic as really the money for, the metaverse. And so, we had wanted to kind of go in the direction of, how could we really become the kind of building blocks for the Lootverse. Eventually we kind of took it in our own direction, which, really led us to where we are. So, it was a kind of fair launch, free distribution, which, and Magic at the end of the day, maintains a kind of, role in governance. So anyone who holds Magic, is able to vote on certain things. The, concept of a DAO is obviously, it means different things to many folks. And, there's a progressive kind of nature and spectrum of it. So there are, an assortment of things that people kind of vote on. Primarily it is, just how we kind of use our treasury and how we, kind of deploy that towards certain kind of growth initiatives. There are people in the community, who either, have become kind of core contributors or, are kind of partaking in kind of council decisions, whether that be kind of governing our like Magic Swap, AMM, we have other kind of, components as well, where people can kind of take a role in there. So kind of, taking this like decentralized ecosystem approach, where, really, of course, anyone can use Magic. They can build on top of Magic if they want. It's the beauty of the blockchain and Web3. But for the DAO to kind of curate at the end of the day, who is kind of considered to be a game or, call it a cartridge that is inserted into this, decentralized Nintendo that is Treasure. And so kind of, having that kind of recognition and then us being able to kind of support them in a meaningful way. It's a very, I think, untraditional kind of approach to publishing. It also means that, it more more of the kind of walled gardens are kind of broken down, and there's a lot more kind of ownership by the studios and the teams, because so much of this is kind of community driven.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah. Actually, one thing I've seen, I don't know if you saw the numbers or in terms of game protocols, Sara talk about it. You got a lot of attention from Wax, depending on what's happening with Alien Worlds. You have Hive with Splinterlands. Seeing these dominance with gamer protocol, what's your opinion with what you're actually building with Arbitrum? And with on our side with the BGA, we're seeing a lot of intention with for Arbitrum to actually develop blockchain games. Kudos to the Weavenant team who are actually building on Arbitrum as well. What do you think about what's happening in terms of game protocols in the ecosystem right now, and how Arbitrum is helping you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the it's for us, like we came onto Arbitrum a month after it launched, right? And so we were quite early, and I think the gaming and really the NFT ecosystem at the time was very nascent. I think since then we've really, I think, helped to kickstart and supercharge what that kind of ecosystem kind of looks like. At the same time, though, you're seeing concentration in a lot of other kind of networks and L2s, right? And which I think is generally a really strong signal for the entire kind of gaming industry that is building within Web3. So I think, I mean, from a network perspective, I mean, the feeling is that there will probably be many winners, but I think at the end of the day, having, I think, an increasing kind of concentration that is on Arbitrum, I think will drive from a kind of liquidity perspective, a attention perspective. I mean, it's been a very I think great environment for builders to come in, and for off-chain labs who are kind of the stewards behind Arbitrum, they've been some of our biggest supporters and super helpful, not just to us but also really all of the games that are building here with their kind of Arbitrum Nova. I mean, their kind of gaming and social kind of specific chain. I mean, that's been also a great sort of addition to everything as well. But I think at the end of the day, like we should aspire to get to a point where no one even knows what network you're on, and it's really the content that kind of rings or shines through everything. So
yeah, I think what Carol just said is actually a very positive signal, because first I wasn't aware that it was born from Loot, and I was following Loot, and we saw a lot of derivatives like trying to build this metaverse Dungeons and Dragons. But it's super surprising to see how the community effect can translate into a gaming result, because Loot was originated as a game that was supposed to be built by the community for the community. Project that launched in stealth, project without roadmap, no Discord, nothing. It's up to you guys to build whatever you want. So it's super positive to see a result coming from that type of mindset. And actually, I think that captures perfectly the ethos that we want to see in Web3: collaboration and community driving engagement and entertainment. And it's also surprising to see that we are starting to see a trend of scaling solutions becoming house powers of games. We have the example of IMX and Polygon, which are both Ethereum scaling solutions. So it's super positive to see that Arbitrum is and will probably become a player of that standard. Especially one thing that you mentioned, they have a really, really good environment for devs to build upon. And I think that's perfect and can speak a lot. So for anyone that is listening, yeah, maybe a good time to start preparing for that RB airdrop.
Awesome. We could actually talk a lot about what you're building, guys, because even what you're doing in terms of interoperability, it's so awesome. I don't know if you can give a brief about what you're building in the ecosystem to make it happen through all the different games that you're having on the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there, and also with interoperability, there's a very broad definition for that, and I think there's with that is a spectrum, but I think for us, like we've kind of had it in mind since day one, really, with kind of the money and kind of it serving as the common currency across everything. That said, though, it kind of goes above and beyond that. So, you have obviously, which I think is the most common form of interoperability right now, but just between kind of games, you have the aesthetic sort of layer. You can take your character in one game and show it in another, and have that kind of represent yourself, or you break it down into its components, and hey, now you're wearing a costume that looks like this other kind of NFT that you own. But I think the exercise that is much more interesting, but also a lot harder to kind of achieve, is like, how do you kind of get to a point where there is kind of economic interoperability, where kind of the economy between game worlds are interwoven together, and so it's a really tough kind of piece to kind of crack there. But I think how we're kind of thinking about it is there's the kind of cross game interoperability. But given that we're kind of building an ecosystem of games that play with each other, work with each other, and are very kind of collaborative, like you truly have a kind of rising tide lifts all boats effect that is more than a saying. And really the success of like kind of one game leads to the success of others, and that comes into interoperability of like communities as well. You have really this kind of like meta game that's kind of evolving. We're spending a lot of time building out kind of tooling that will really kind of enhance both the like builder and player experience. And so, thinking about, how you kind of reduce the friction for, players to kind of get in, right? And so, we're building a like login with treasure experience where, you have really a single kind of, experience, custodial wallet. You don't need a MetaMask, you log in, and this is something that all of the games can then sort of use. And then there's another layer on top of that, where as we think about kind of reputation, being able to take your identity, everything you've accomplished on chain and also within the games, and having that, really lead into this almost like proof of play sort of framework. And so you have a lot of that where you can have a common XP system, badges, achievements that, you can take from game to game within Treasure, but then also outside of that. So, really this kind of like interoperable metagame that's kind of emerging on top of everything else that's kind of happening here. And we're spending a lot of time, focused on that.
I think this is very, very cool. And hi, it's very, very nice hearing you. And, like, I was writing the report, and like when Pedro told me, I was like shocked. And I think you guys are doing incredible, incredible things. I do have one question for you. As okay, we are in a very fast-paced environment, because I think Web3 is like what happens in 1 month is what happens in a normal traditional industry in 1 year. Do you think that the mainstream adoption, will come as fast as is the industry building, or will take more time and adoption will not come as fast as we want? What do you think?
I think the degree of adoption kind of depends, but I think we will move a lot faster as an industry than for that adoption to come. I think there's still a lot of room for us to innovate, and I think we're still learning exactly what model works the best. At the end of the day, I think the user experience needs to be on par with Web 2 first, which it currently isn't. And then there also needs to be, in my mind, content and IP that will, really lend itself to like a great game experience, and, for, a set of players to come from that is, I think, because I think, we're really not competing with, kind of Web3 and Web3 games. Like we're just competing as games, period. Right. And so, I think they have to be just as good as Web2 games that, players are used to today. I think still speaking to, the early pioneers, that are coming into the space, primarily kind of crypto or Web3 native. There may be some, folks who are starting to trickle in who are kind of curious, but I think, there's still a long way for us to kind of go to kind of combat, the negative stigma that, has kind of happened in the space, not by the fault of games, but, I think, where it's a side effect that we're sort of experiencing. So to sum it up, I mean, I think it's the user experience, the onboarding that has to be, much more seamless, and then we have to have great games.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Carol. Thanks to the DappRadar team, the research and analytics team. It was very cool to have you on the show and actually deep dive into the result, the data, but actually giving kind of let's say context about the thing that you mentioned through the Treasure DAO activity. So it was really cool to have you, Carol, on the show as well. And yes, a lot of other very cool info to digest through that report, which was released 1 hour ago. So feel free to check out in the websites, in the DappRadar website, to see every data you need to understand when mentioning blockchain gaming. Thanks again, guys. It was a real pleasure to have you today, and I see you very soon. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Have a nice one.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.